One of my most anticipated movies of 2023, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, is finally available in theaters. And this will be my spoiler-free review, so if you haven't watched the film yet, you are safe. Having said that though, if you're one of those people that likes to go into a movie not knowing much, if anything at all, maybe don't watch this review here or really any reviews on the movie. Just like a normal review, I'll get into the plot and the characters. But unlike a normal review, I'm going to be a lot more vague and a lot more careful about what I say. It's still a new movie, just came out, not everybody has had the chance to see it yet, and usually when it comes to Marvel movies, people like to have some surprises, so I'd like to leave as much as possible for you guys. But with that out of the way, let's get into who made it, who's in it, and what it's about. Volume 3 is written and directed by James Gunn, the writer and director of the first two Guardians films. This will be his last Guardians project, his last Marvel project, at least for a while, because after this, he is over at DC, starting the DC Universe. So with that, it's likely the last time we'll see some of these characters for quite a while. And getting into the characters, as well as who's playing them, starting with Peter Quill / Star-Lord, of course being played by Chris Pratt. Also in the film, as the voice of Rocket, we have Bradley Cooper. As Mantis, we have Pom Klementieff. As Drax, we have Dave Bautista. As Gamora, we have Zoe Saldana. As Nebula, we have Karen Gillan. As the voice of Groot, we have Vin Diesel.
Family, family, family.
As Kraglin, we have Sean Gunn, James Gunn's brother. And as the voice of Cosmo, we have Maria Bakalova. But getting into a couple new characters here, we have Will Poulter playing Adam Warlock, and we have Chukwudi Iwuji playing the High Evolutionary. Now, to set up the plot and the story as vaguely as possible, if you couldn't tell from the marketing, this movie is a very Rocket-centric forward film. The story almost revolves around him. You could almost even say he's the main character. We get to see flashbacks to his origins and his creator / antagonist of the film, the High Evolutionary. And you have those things going on with Rocket. They are very much the driving force of the film, but you also have some other stuff going on, such as the relationship between Peter and Gamora. And overall, you just get a lot of character development from members of the Guardians that we haven't seen quite as much of in the last films. So yeah, that's pretty much all I will say without giving too much away there. So without further ado, let's get into the review itself. Starting with the characters, all the returning members in the cast have such great chemistry with each other, and it shows on screen. You can tell all the actors care about one another, so all the characters care about one another. With this film here, it feels the Guardians are the most like a family as they've ever been. Sure, a dysfunctional family, but still a family. And like I said before, you get character development from other members of the Guardians that we really haven't seen as much of in the last films. Two in particular are Mantis and Nebula. They had some of the most fun stuff to do in this movie, had some of the most emotional moments. But talking about the other returning members, Drax is great in here. He's not just a laughing idiot throughout the entire movie this time. They actually give him a little bit more depth. Then let's talk about Groot for a second. I love Groot. Everybody loves Groot, but he's not a baby anymore, so he doesn't get as much attention as he used to. You kind of forget Groot is there for a little bit, but you don't really mind it. There's plenty of other things going on to be entertained by and enjoy. That being said, Groot still gets some really great moments of action in this movie. But let's talk about Kraglin and Cosmo for a second. As per usual, Kraglin doesn't get that much screen time. Same goes for Cosmo, but the little bit of screen time they do get is fun. Then let's talk about Zoe Saldana as Gamora. A little bit of a spoiler for previous films, but Gamora died in Infinity War, so now we're seeing a variant version of her. And I'll be honest, I don't think James Gunn was dealt the best hand when it came to Gamora's character, and especially what they did in Infinity War. I feel like I would have enjoyed it a little bit more if we could have just continued with her story rather than kind of setting her back to square one. But out of all the things James Gunn could have done with this character, I think he did it justice in here. Now on to Star-Lord himself. I think Chris Pratt does great in this movie, as always. This was, in a lot of ways, his breakout role, and he continues to kill it as the character. Brings the humor and the emotion. But now for the last returning character, I must talk about Rocket. Like I said, he is basically the main protagonist of the film. This is his story, his movie. And learning his origin, how heartbreaking yet heartwarming it is the absolute best part of this movie. The story with Rocket is the thing that people are going to take away from this film for good reason, but I will say at times it might take a little bit away from the other members of the Guardians, and especially one of the new characters. And that new character I'm referring to is Adam Warlock, played by Will Poulter. I do not like the way they did Adam Warlock in this movie. I'm not going to get too specific with anything, but for one, I feel like he was very underused, and secondly, I feel like his character was used as just a bit of a punchline. Within the context of the film, it makes sense, but I feel like most fans of the character will most likely be let down by the portrayal of the character in here. But the last cast member / character I want to mention is Chukwudi Iwuji as the High Evolutionary. The High Evolutionary is one of those villains you're going to love to hate, or even at times hate to hate. The character is so sick and twisted, and in many ways brings a new level of darkness to not only the Guardians films, but the MCU itself, that I feel like some people might not be ready for. Saying it right now, for any animal lovers out there, this is not going to be an easy movie for you to watch. His character is basically if you took the one small aspect of Darren Cross from Ant-Man where he's shrinking animals and testing on them, and pretty much makes that his whole character. Which makes for a villain that you really hate, but at the same time, it doesn't make for a very layered character, because it seems like the High Evolutionary for the most part is just evil for the sake of evil. I do think it's mostly the performance from Chukwudi Iwuji that brings more to the character than anything. But yeah, the character is one of the most brutal and one of the most sick and sadistic characters the MCU has ever seen. It's going to make it a hard watch for some people out there. I know it did for me. He might not be my favorite villain in the entire MCU, but he's definitely my favorite villain in the Guardians trilogy. But now getting away from the characters and talking about the movie itself, the main issue I have with this movie is balancing tones or the lack thereof. I don't think this movie has as much of an issue balancing tones as something like Thor Love and Thunder does, but it's still a factor when you have one side of the movie that's humorous and lighthearted and another side that's serious and dark. Those tones definitely clash at times, makes some of the humor not work as well as it should, makes some of the more emotional elements not work as well as it should. This movie definitely has issues balancing tones and maybe even giving enough screen time to certain characters. Even though I did like them in the film, I feel like characters like Drax and Groot got a lot less to do in this movie than they have in prior ones. But it does feel like every character gets at least one moment in the movie to shine, and all the characters together get the opportunity to shine as a group. I think I might have said this earlier, but in this film here, they feel like more of a family than they've ever felt. I probably should say this, there is a post and after credits scene, so make sure you stay for those. But now it is time to rank the movie. When it comes to my ranking, 2023's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is obviously a premium ticket. There are positives and negatives in this film, but the positives far outweigh the negatives, in my opinion. I very much want to see this movie in the theaters again. I only got to see it once. But with that, down in the comments below, without spoiling anything, have you seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3? What did you think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you in the middle? Have you not seen it? Are you planning on watching it anytime soon? Why or why not? Really, any comments you have for me, I would love to hear from you. I respond to as much as I can. And if you folks want to see me do a spoiler review for Guardians Volume 3, let me know by leaving a like. If we can get this video to 36 likes, yes, I just chose the most random number I could think of, 36 likes, and I will make it happen. So do me a favor and leave a like on this video, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload, and I will see you in the next one.